Welcome everybody to Mudflood was Armageddon, formerly Flat Earth Nation, Golden Age past. Because Mudflood was Armageddon, it is a Flat Earth Nation, and the Golden Age, the reign of Christ, is past. We're living in a new era, and the Drudge Report used to be what I call right-wing crack. I read it every day for well, I think since it's been around probably. And, for me, it's clear to see that it has to be in on it too. It is struggling, to equate everything into that if you're pro Democrat or for Biden, then you have to be for Donald Trump. And the people on the left see it the same way, that if you're for Donald Trump, you have to be against Biden. Instead, I know that there is a group of people out there that realize that if you vote at all, you're voting for the status quo, to keep the mind occupied on the new ABCs. Anything but Christ and forgiveness. A look at the headlines. It's all about, just like Oz, and we're supposed to know, you're supposed to know, Oz is one of those guys backed by Trump, although he's not what you'd call a true conservative. Cedric the Entertainer roasts Herschel Walker in an ad. Well, doesn't take much to realize, that's black on black racial violence. Herschel Walker is trying to be a conservative. He's backed by the MAGA group. Pelosi has to go. Dems say time for new leadership. Well, she's in her 80s. Her husband is mafia connected, some say. And, it's in their face. It's an embarrassment to him. I guess the governor of, Florida is sending Cubans to Delaware. Texas is sending, Martha Vineyard. Sadistic lie. They have, it's playing pawns with life. Here's more. A reporter asked Kirby, that's the new spokeswoman. Everybody just loves to make fun of them because whether it's left or right, they're not going to like the spokesman that they have, the secretary or the whatever they call them. Interesting title. Reporter asked Kirby if he's at White House to undermine first female black secretary. Who knows where this is going? But the article that, I still look at the Drudge Report just to see what they want me to believe, where they want me to take the arguments. MAGA attempts to ban books, accelerating, becoming more divisive. That's a headline. So that's the one we're going to look at. And is it really MAGA? Because I, for one, don't believe that you can make America great, because I think that America is only great based on the history that's been rewritten by the winners of the war. And it seems like with MK Ultra, Operation Paperclip, the other operations where the mafia helped the United States take back Sicily and Italy, and once you make a deal with the mafia, you're in there. So to me, this is a war against Christ. And this is, this article, I pre-read it one time. It just seems offensive in its transparency of that anybody that is going to, be against promoting the gay lifestyle has to be for Trump. And once again, if your hopes are on Trump, I think you're barking up the wrong tree. So without any further ado, from September 16th, 2022, the web page is the DNYUZ. I'm not sure what that stands for. Maybe somebody will tell us in the comics, but here's your thumbnail, and the top book is, "This book is gay." And probably these are some of the books that this article is going to say, MAGA. Only people for Trump would want to do that, not realizing that it does seem that Trump is going to be set up as an embarrassment. I mean, looking at this world, it just takes my breath away that people aren't running for the hills already, instead of saying like, oh yeah, we can deal with these 5Gs, we can deal with, medical interventions, but let's focus on this article, its tone, and remember, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Starting off the article, attempts to ban books are accelerating across the country at a rate never seen since tracking began more than 20 years ago. Well, I know that there have been book bans for a lot more than 20 years, but maybe they're looking at it as according to a new report from the American Library Association. So far in 2022, there have been attempts to ban or restrict access to 1,651 different titles, the group found, up from challenges of 1,597 books in 2021, the year with the highest number of complaints since the group began documenting book challenges decades ago. Book banning efforts have grown rapidly in number and become much more organized, divisive, and vitriolic over the past 2 years, splitting communities, causing bitter rifts on schools and library boards, and spreading across the country through social media and political campaigns. Public libraries have been threatened by politicians and community members with a loss of funding for their refusal to remove books. Members of the Proud Boys, an extremist right-wing group, showed up at a school board in Illinois where book access was on the agenda. At a drag queen story hour in California. Is that something new? Drag queen story hours. And if that is not promoting a lifestyle, what is? It says that librarians have been accused of promoting pedophilia. It's not hard to see where people could make that argument. In its recent analysis, the Library Association cited 27 instances of police reports being filed against library staff over the content of their shelves. Well, to me, that just says, well, that's one way to do it. It represents an escalation, and we're truly fearful that at some point we will see a librarian arrested for providing constitutionally protected books on disfavored topics, said Deborah Caldwell Stone, the director of the Office of Intellectual Freedom at the Library Association. They're being threatened with prosecution, attacked on social media, harassed for simply doing their job by trying to meet the information needs of their communities. At the end of that quote, it's a good argument from their point of view if they want to say, well, books that promote pedophilia are constitutionally protected. Well, that's an argument that, their side is going to dig into. Let's look at what they've done with abortion. Abortion is something that should be cut and dried, but somehow they've managed to keep it at a 50-50, I'm for abortion, I'm against abortion. Continuing, book challenges defined in the report as, open quote, willful attempts to remove or restrict access to library resources or programming, close quote, can be a written objection, a complaint form submitted to a library, or a demand for removal issued on social media, the organization said. While in the past, complaints tended to focus on a single book, the majority of books challenges in 2021 targeted multiple titles, the library organization said. The efforts have long come from both sides of the political spectrum. Well, there you go. They're both sides. The report highlight challenges to, and this is the title of a book, open quote, The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian, close quote, written by Sherman Alexie, included one made in a left-leaning New York City suburb over concerns about offensive racial language. And it's hard to know what to call a Native American nowadays. Is it indigenous? You don't want to call them an Indian because that's offensive. Continuing in the next paragraph, but the report emphasizes the role that conservative politics and politicians have played in the escalation of the issue. Conservative groups like Moms for Liberty, side note, that doesn't sound like, a real, what a tough group. Boy, I'm mad. You don't want the Moms for Liberty mad at you. Continuing, which is leading efforts to have books that they view as inappropriate removed from school libraries, describe book challenges as a matter of parental choice. Parents should be able to select books for their children are exposed to, they argue, and evaluate whether something runs contrary to their values. And I think that's a pretty good argument, that parents should be in charge of what their children read and what their tax-paying money puts in the local libraries. Continuing, free speech organizations and many librarians, however, say that by pushing to remove these books from libraries, those parents are trampling on the rights of others who want the books to be available. The removals can be especially detrimental for young people who see themselves in the books, they argue. Now they get pretty graphic at the end of this article about what they want the young people to believe. We're going to continue, opening quote. Young people are going through these experiences and they are hungry for information, close quote, the aforementioned Caldwell Stone said, continuing to quote, to remove these books denies that opportunity for education and is also an act of erasure, a very stark message that you don't belong here. Your stories don't belong here. And remember, she's talking about books that promote children as young as kindergarten and third grade being able to tell their parents, I'm not really a boy, I'm a girl. Now, that used to be solved in the scientific world, but that was a different age. The Library Group, a nonprofit that promotes libraries and library education, defines itself as nonpartisan. So I guess you're supposed to believe it because they said it. Many of the challenges are directly linked to the talking points of the conservative movement, including how to teach children about racial inequality. James LaRue, the former director of the ALA's Office for Intellectual Freedom, wrote in the report. Books that focus on the LGBTQ, that's lesbian, gay, bi, trans, queer, or black characters, I guess somehow, I haven't heard that one yet, have been targeted most often, the association says, with Marie Cabey's book called Gender Queer, the most frequently challenged book in the country, a debut graphic novel. The book is about coming out as non-binary, and this is, a graphic novel is comic book. It includes depictions of sexual experience, masturbation, and menstrual blood. Well, I think the Moms for Liberty probably have a pretty good idea that there's a time and a place to teach that, and it's not just by stumbling onto a book at your local library. Continuing, the report also detailed how charged and extreme recent efforts to remove books have become. In a Washington school district, a parent filed police reports against school officials, accusing them of distributing graphic pornography because of gender queer was available in the library. And well, it's probably something that you can't show the pictures of in an article like this. Continuing now, at a public library in Gillette, Wyoming, community members who wanted books about lesbian, gay, bi, transsexual, and queer themes and characters removed filed a criminal report with the sheriff's office accusing library staff of providing obscene material. No charges were brought, but just the fact that they were filed must, was a very terrible thing, I guess, for them. Now, in Tyler, Texas, Jonathan Evason's novel, Lawn Boy, was banned after parents complained about graphic depictions of sex in the book and included it on a list of 120 questionable books. Conservative politicians running for office and elected officials have seized on the topic. And, I'll interject there, why wouldn't they in a world where it's 50-50? Some people think, one of the most popular themes you can see on YouTube is like, oh, we're having a reveal party of what sex we're going to raise our child as. It just seems like it's gone crazy. In Virginia and Texas, candidates have campaigned on the idea that parents should have more say over the books their children can access. And if that's not a sign that this world is going to hell in a handbasket, well, it is still a very anti-biblical, anti-Christian world. I mean, what did they do to the fact that, it started in the 70s when, what's marriage but a piece of paper? Well, the Bible defines it as something much, much more. Closing out, in a significant escalation, a Republican delegate from Virginia sued Barnes & Nobles in an effort to stop it from selling 2 books to minors. A open quote of the name of the book, A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah James Moss, and the book Gender Queer, previously mentioned. A circuit court judge dismissed that attempt last month. With the approach of midterm elections, challenges to books and conflicts that surround them are only likely to escalate. The Post attempts to ban books are accelerating and becomes more divisive. First appeared in the New York Times. So this article, and they're warning about how this is a liberal and conservative thing that is only sponsored by MAGA, the Make America Great movement, is, front and center. In this world, we're coming to a point of where what I believe is that if you're sitting around and arguing about this with people and thinking that, well, maybe it is true that if you think that by removing this books you can make America great again, stay in the cities, stay with your 5G towers, stay with your nanotechnology, and that the banks are never going to crash and there's never going to be martial law or even zombies or anything like that, I think you're living in the world that is what they're selling, but I'm not buying. I hope that this short video And if you made it this far, I appreciate you listening. But it is all about the new ABCs. Anything but Christ. If you want to do any, they're talking about giving books that talked about graphic sex, masturbation, and menstrual blood to children as, once it's in the library of a school, anybody can get it. And they're not even talking about high school. So, is there something to worry about? Yes. Is there a way you can avoid it? Yes. And it's not by anything but Christ. It is by looking for Christ and His words in the Bible. Hopefully you'll stay with me, and we'll have chances to go over those later, or go back if you want my true feelings on those subjects. This is a reminder that Mudflood was Armageddon. You know I'm never going to tell you anything else. Why would I? Still trying to prove I have your best interest at heart. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho.